The International Criminal Court is now going to investigate Russia. The ICC prosecutor is to investigate possible war crimes in Ukraine. Okay? Now, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in The Hague has announced that he will launch an investigation into possible war crimes or crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Now, Karim Khan said that although Ukraine was not a member of the ICC, it had awarded jurisdiction to the court. So this is very important to understand. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this works. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, comes from the Rome Statute, right? So this is signed, 1999, the year 2000, when countries started ratifying it, and you have to be a member. Okay, you have to sign on. You have to be a member to start a case against another country. Now, the attacker doesn't have to be a member. So if I take just as an example, Israel, Palestine, Israel is not a member of the International Criminal Court. Go figure. The Palestinians, of course, have an issue of, are they regarded as a state? They don't have full member status at the United Nations and so on. And so last year, the ICC decided, you know what? We are still going to establish jurisdiction in Palestine, even though it doesn't have full member status at the UN and so on. And this got the Israelis enraged. Why would the Israelis be enraged about a war crimes investigation if they're not a member of the ICC? Because you just need the victim to be a member of the ICC to launch an investigation. Do you understand? And so in this case, Ukraine is not a member of the ICC, but they still decided to cooperate and award jurisdiction to the court. Okay? So the ICC prosecutor is saying that there was grounds to open an investigation based on a previous preliminary investigation on Crimea and the Donbass published last year and on current events in Ukraine. So again, this is like with Palestine, they don't just investigate something happening now, they might bundle in a bunch of things. And as we can see here, this is also dealing with what's been happening in Donbass and Crimea. Okay, and so Khan, the ICC prosecutor, the chief prosecutor, says, I've already tasked my team to explore all evidence preservation opportunities. And he said that he would go to ICC judges to approve the inquiry, okay? But it would be faster if an ICC member state referred the case to his office, which would allow us to actively and immediately proceed with the office's independent and objective investigations, right? So again, there is a pre-trial basically, before they even start, they need permission from the ICC to launch an investigation. Okay, you can't just decide, I'm going to launch one. You need to get permission first, and that's what happened with Palestine. They granted permission for the chief prosecutor to establish jurisdiction and then open a case. I know it's a bit... I'm trying to explain it as simple as possible so you can wrap your minds around it, but this is basically how it works. And then earlier in the day, Lithuania had called on the ICC to open an investigation into possible war crimes by Russia and Belarus in Ukraine. And so Lithuania's prime minister, Simonit, told the Washington Post that what Putin is doing is just a murder and nothing else, and I hope he will be in The Hague. The Hague, which is in the Netherlands, where the ICC is based. George Bush, when he was president, George Bush Jr., when he was president, he passed a law, right, that says if an American is ever tried at the International Criminal Court, they will invade the Netherlands. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not like misreading. No, that's exactly what I just told you. So if an American is ever taken to the International Criminal Court, the United States will invade the Netherlands. I mean, talk about like disrespect for international law. As you can deduce from what I've just stated to you, the United States is not a member of the ICC. So, Bill Clinton was supposed to sign it, dragging his feet, and I think he does it on the last day in office, and then Bush gets in office and he doesn't ratify it and so on. So Russia is not a member of the ICC either, right? That's also important to understand. And I think that's wrong. We can't criticize the United States and Israel for not being a member of the ICC and then give Russia a pass. No. It's also wrong for Russia not to be a member of the ICC. Because, again, there are several things that can be investigated. It's not just war crimes, it's crimes against humanity, the crime of aggression, which is, for example, what people are saying that Russia has done now against Ukraine is a crime of aggression. It's basically starting a war for no reason. A quintessential example of a crime of aggression is the invasion of Iraq in 2003. There's no UN mandate. They tried going to the UN, they lied at the UN said no, and then they went in anyway. And interestingly enough, Tony Blair, I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but this does give you context to understand how all of this works. Tony Blair, for example, he couldn't be prosecuted for invading Iraq in the UK because the UK, although it signed the Rome Statute and it's an ICC member, there is one crime which it did not ratify and codify into British law. And what is that? It's the crime of aggression. So, you know, that's how you end up with Tony Blair escaping justice. But anyway, they want to... So they want to go and they want to go after... Oh, that's Bellingcat. That's, you know, wow. He has me blocked for some reason, this guy. I've never even spoken to him. I wonder why. Is he afraid of something? In any case, here's same article from RT, same thing. And I just think it's interesting. You know why? I think it's really interesting that they want to go after Russia within a week. I mean, again, this hasn't been a week since Russia has, whatever you want to call it, an invasion or started their military operation or policing operation. It hasn't even been a week since they've gone into Ukraine. And already the ICC is saying, let's open up an investigation. Okay, great. Wonderful. Let the rule of law, of international law prevail. My question to you is, why have Palestinians had to wait so long just until last year, right? So when the ICC was looking to investigate Israeli crimes in Palestine, it's several crimes, okay? 2018, 2019, what was happening? You had Palestinians who would go every Friday after prayers and protest at the so-called border fence, demanding to return home. They want to go back to their homes that were stolen by the Israelis, by the Israeli settlers. And what would happen? The Israelis would just shoot them. There was a famous headline where one of the Israeli soldiers is bragging that he shot 42 knees in one day. Like, they would purposely cripple people, not even just kill them, just disable them. You know, you had so many amputations. It's unbelievable. And so this is one of the things that the ICC wanted to investigate. Another thing, for example, is the bombing of Gaza in 2014, right? I think you had around over 2,000 Palestinians who were killed, 65% of them civilians. The majority of those people were in their homes when they were killed, which shows you that the Israelis were targeting residential areas. And that's another thing. So that's 2014, right? That's 2014. And if we're being honest, I mean, these are just a few of the crimes that should be investigated. But nevertheless, my question is, that was in 2014 when they went into Gaza. How come it took until 2021 for the ICC to finally say, you know what, we will recognize jurisdiction over Palestine, therefore enabling us to launch an investigation? And you know who did this? That was Fatou Bensouda. She used to be the ICC chief prosecutor before Khan. Just, you know, her mandate was just until a few months ago. And so just before she leaves, again, I'm not accusing her necessarily of being, you know, doing anything devious. I'm just telling you the facts. Just before she leaves, that's when she declares that, that's when she gets approval to give jurisdiction on the Palestinians, right? It's not just her decision. So the ICC has to give her that permission. And again, my question is, why do Palestinians have to wait so long? But with Russia, it's just, you know, snap your fingers, let's go. I could also argue about Iraq. You know, how come no one's been prosecuted for Iraq? Because if you're going to come here and tell me, well, war is bad and, you know, international law should prevail, fine, great. But where is it when there are much more egregious crimes that should have been dealt with, you know, decades ago? That's my question. And I'm trying to understand why the world is like jumping into action, trying to punish Russia, sanction Russia, ban RT, go after Russia in the ICC. Like, okay, if that's how we're going to treat people who go into other countries and make them a pariah, okay, fine. But why doesn't it count when you do it? Because the people doing this to Russia are hypocrites. It's the EU, it's EU member states, it's the UK, it's the US. They're hypocrites. They've done far worse than Russia, and no one turned on them like that. So there is a double standard here. Whatever you think of Russia, whatever you think of Ukraine, there is a double standard here, and you must acknowledge this. Okay, and it's not even just a double standard in morality and discourse and rhetoric. It's even a legal double standard, because the law is being applied for one party and it's not being applied for another party. Do you understand? And that is what's concerning here. And so here I want to read you a statement. This is a press release from the president of the International Court of Justice. Okay, and this was again, this is from 1st of March. The president of the International Court of Justice, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, addressed today an urgent communication to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, so Lavrov, with a copy to the government of Ukraine in the case concerning allegations of genocide under the Convention on Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Okay, so in the text of the communication says, quote, I have the honor to refer to the request for the indication of provisional measures filed in the proceedings instituted by Ukraine against the Russian Federation on 26th of February 2022. And so they hereby call the attention of the Russians to act in a way that would enable the court to make any provisional measures. And so my point here is that you have not only because again, the ICJ, which I just read you the statement of, is not the exact same thing as the ICC, okay? It literally said it in the document that I just read you. It's the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The ICC is different, okay? The International Criminal Court. That's based in The Hague, and it comes from the Rome Statute, okay? And so the International Criminal Court is, as the name implies, it's for criminal cases, and the International Court of Justice from the UN is usually for a civil court between countries that hears disputes between countries, right? So, for example, if you have a trade dispute, you would go to the ICJ, not necessarily the ICC. Just a rudimentary example. So, again, this is another organ now with the UN, as we're seeing. So not just ICC, but also the UN. They're jumping into action. Great, wonderful. Finally, these institutions actually fucking do something. It's great. But where is it when you need it for things like Iraq or Libya? Or do I really need to go through the list? I can't go through the list because there are too many countries. I'm just giving you the most recent ones. In my opinion, sanctions, when you go and starve someone to death, like if I come to you and I shoot you in the head or I starve you to death, I'm still killing you. I'm still an aggressor, right? If you do that to someone. So don't come here and tell me like bombs are more humane or something than starving someone to death. They're both attacks. And sanctions, I mean, that they don't even treat that as something serious. It's just like whatever, It is illegal under international law. Make no mistake. When the US puts sanctions on Russia, for example, they're not sanctioned by the UN, no pun intended. The UN didn't allow the sanctions. So technically, they're not legal under international law. They're unilateral, coercive measures. And so no one gets punished for that. If you look at, and here's the irony, even when the UN approves them, like it just to give you an idea that even when they're supposedly legal, how lethal they are. The UN backed these sanctions against Iraq in the 90s. And I mean, that famous quote from the U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, where she's asked by a reporter, do you think it was worth killing 500,000 children in Iraq with sanctions? Not bombs, sanctions. 500,000 children in Iraq. And again, that's supposedly legal. Does that make it right? No. It's just as brutal. I don't think you could have even killed 500 million Iraqi children with bombs. Even if you tried, that would have taken you. I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Sorry, not 500 million, 500,000. Excuse me. I didn't want to make a mistake with that. 500,000, not million. But the point is the same, right? You have a concerted, calculated effort to attack a country, and I don't think that's taken seriously at all. Anyway, just going back to the ICC and what they're saying here. Here's the article from RT. Let me show you what they've written. So they basically published the same statement from the official ICC website, right? This is the same thing that that I just read to you about starting a case against Russia. Again, Ukraine is not a state party to the Rome Statute. Neither, Russia is also not a member, but they're going for it nevertheless. And they're also including crimes. Look at this. They're the first lodged declaration by the government of Ukraine accepted ICC jurisdiction with respect to alleged crimes committed on Ukrainian territory from November 2013 to February 2014, right? And so they're also taking those crimes into account. It's not just what's happening now. But nevertheless, I feel like there's a real global effort to quickly, let's jump into action. We'll go and attack Russia on every level, economic, financial, judicial, you name it. And we'll even send military aid. But when other countries do something similar, it's just not there. So once again, I've been trying to paint you the double standards, and here you go. Here's one of them, right? This is one of the clear double standards that you're seeing again.